Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another Top 10 video. And today I'm going to do a Top 10 Martin Scorsese films. A quick intro. I used to believe that Martin Scorsese was the second best filmmaker in the world, behind Akira Kurosawa, but over the years he has kind of slipped in my view a little bit, ever since he kind of started doing just about all of his films with Leonardo DiCaprio. I do think some of his what are regarded as his classic films haven't aged as well. I mean, in saying that, they're still like 4 out of 5 star films, but I don't think they are the masterpieces that people think they are, in my opinion. And full disclosure, I haven't actually seen all of his films after Gangs of New York. I've seen Gangs of New York, I've seen Shutter Island, unfortunately I've seen The Departed, which is absolutely terrible. Just go watch Infernal Affairs, the film that The Departed remade badly. So I'll admit, I haven't seen Wolf of Wall Street or anything like that, so please let me know what I'm missing out on. And as far as this top 10 list, I'm sure quite a few people will disagree with it, because it is a fairly controversial top 10 Scorsese films. It's probably not the films that people would automatically expect to be in the top 10, but again, this is just my personal preference. So please let me know in the comments below how wrong I am. So let's start, shall we? So number 10, the top 10 Scorsese films, is Cape Fear. Now this is a 1992 remake of the 1962 film of the same name, with Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum, who appear in nice little cameos. And this really was Scorsese's first kind of commercial studio picture. He had just done Goodfellas, and also the success of that. This is more, I remember at the time this was quite a shock that Scorsese was doing this, a remake by Scorsese. That's, the questions of, was he out of ideas, or so it's a very good film. It's not a great film. It's kind of hyper reality. It's kind of overblown. It's bombastic. It's not subtle in any way, shape or form. It's kind of driven by De Niro's just animalistic I don't want to say cartoonish, because he does kind of step back a little bit from the edge of being cartoonish, but the whole film has that kind of heightened reality, kind of bombastic feel about it. So he plays Max Cady, who gets out of prison and wants to teach Nick Nolte's lawyer and his family the meaning of loss. There is a slight difference between the lawyer in this film and the original 1962 film. I'm not going to tell you what that is in case you haven't seen the film, but all you need to know is kind of Gregory Peck played the lawyer in the original, and Nick Nolte plays the lawyer in this version. And if you know anything about cinema, you kind of know what Gregory Peck kind of represents and what he kind of stands for generally in his films. Whereas Nick Nolte, can stand for many other things. That's a fairly waffly way of putting it. It's a good film. It is a watchable film, but I certainly wouldn't say it's a great film. But that's number 10, Cape Fear. Number 9, one of Scorsese's most controversial, if not the most controversial, it's The Last Temptation of Christ. Again, when this came out, before Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, this was the most controversial Jesus story. And it was controversial. It was based on a book, and the message pretty much was, Jesus is a man at the beginning of the story. He's struggling with the idea of he's also the Son of God. So he does very human things, and that kind of upset a lot of people. He was kind of questioning himself. He was questioning his role in the world, his role with God. So that's kind of what upset a lot of people about it, because they just thought Jesus knows he's the Son of God, and he loved the whole idea of it. This has a great performance of Willem Dafoe, who I really ought to be doing a top 10 performances of, because I think Willem Dafoe is really underrated. He's done a lot of great films. He's done a lot of great performances. He can do subtle, quiet performances, and he can go kind of full-on performances as well. This has Barbara Hershey in it as well, who actually brought the book to Scorsese's attention when he was doing Raging Bull, I believe. And Harvey Keitel's in it as well, as Judas, which is a nice bit of casting. And the end is one of the greatest endings in cinema history, and it all came about by accident. I'm not going to tell you what it is, obviously. It's a really good film. I'm not sure. I'm not going to do a top 10 Jesus story films. Personally, I think Pasolini's Gospel of St. Matthew probably edges this one out. But this is still very good and looks beautiful. So definitely check that out. So that's number 9, The Last Temptation of Christ. Number 8 is Mean Streets, which, shock horror, I only have on DVD. Again, this is one of Scorsese's films that I do think is a little bit highly regarded, or more highly regarded than it really should. Don't get me wrong, it's still number 8 on my list. It's rough, it's raw, it's loose, but it has a real energy, which is one of Scorsese's trademarks. Again, it's a volatile performance by Robert De Niro and Harvey Keitel, and again, it smells like New York, which is really kind of Scorsese's ballpark. It's where he grew up. So it is a really good film, but again, it's maybe a little bit more highly regarded through rose-tinted glasses than it maybe should be, but again, that's just my opinion. So number 7, which people may have higher, is Raging Bull. 1980. It's a savage film about not a very nice character, but in the end he doesn't really reach redemption, but more a kind of acceptance of what he is, and I guess we could all do with a little bit of that. It's shot in gorgeous black and white. It's an amazing performance by De Niro, who will probably get a top 10 of his own. Obviously he gained weight, and that's a kind of famous thing for him, but he more kind of inhabited Jake LaMotta. The boxing scenes are probably unlike any boxing scenes filmed before or since. It really puts you in the ring. You feel the punches. The whole film is pretty much an assault on the viewer. There's no let up to it. Whether it's Joe Pesci punching him in the face in his kitchen after De Niro laments how small his hands are, or whether it is the physical beatings in the ring. To me, it's Scorsese's most, or it's the closest Scorsese got to a kind of Italian neo-realist film. Again, it's the streets of New York, it's the people he grew up with. There is, because of the black and white, there just is that kind of sense. I'm sure if you watch the film in Italian or with Italian an Italian dub, you could actually think it's an Italian film. It doesn't make any sense, but that's kind of the feeling I get from it. Again, it's not an enjoyable film, it's not meant to be enjoyable. And again, I think very much like Main Streets, for me at least, it's maybe just a 4 out of 5 now. I used to think it was a 5. But again, that's all subjective, you know. I could watch it again in a couple of months and think it's a 5. So that's Raging Bull, and that's number 7. Now this is where things probably get controversial. Number 6 is Kundun, which I really love. This is probably, well, it is Scorsese's most beautiful film. It's about a young Dalai Lama. And again, at the time when he made this, people were like, what? But it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, we're talking about Italian neorealism with Raging Bull. This is the closest Scorsese got to doing a Powell and Pressburger film, doing an expressionistic film. So emotions are expressed through colour and music. Philip Glass did the score, and emotion. It's just a beautiful film. It's not, there is a thread of narrative that runs through it, but it's not really a narrative film. It's one of Scorsese's most emotional films, and it's just a sight to behold, especially on Blu-ray. It's just a beautiful film, and it's probably one of those Scorsese films that hasn't actually been seen that much. But I would highly recommend it, especially if you are into more expressionistic films and you're not kind of obsessed with, you know, there has to be a strong narrative and, you know, things have to be happening all the time. I mean, it's more an expressionistic journey through colour and light and sound, and it's absolutely beautiful. That's number 6. Now number 5 is a great wee film, and again it might be a film that not many people have actually seen, but it's After Hours with Griffin Dunne. Now, I will be doing a series of films that should be on Criterion Blu-rays, or Criterion period, and this would certainly be one of those films. It's kind of a surreal, almost Kafkaesque little nightmare about a man played by Griffin Dunne who meets a girl in a restaurant and gets her number and goes to meet her later in the night, and it just leads to one crazy adventure after another. It's just a wonderful little film. It's cyclical. It kind of starts and ends roughly at the same place, and it's just a journey into craziness during that kind of, well, the time after hours, the early hours of the morning, when the streets are kind of deserted, apart from strange characters. It's funny, it's slightly disturbing, and it's just one of the most kind of overlooked films in Scorsese's canon. It's a great performance by Griffin Dunne, who obviously was fairly big in the early to mid 80s, with American Werewolf in London, for example. It's just a great film, and it really deserves to be kind of rediscovered, and that's what Criterion, or even Arrow, it would be an ideal film for Arrow, should do. So that's After Hours, and that is relatively high at number 5, but again, let me know in the comments where you think it should be in the top 10, or if it should be in the top 10 at all. Number 4 is Taxi Driver. Again, some people might have it a bit higher. Again, I was kind of back and forth on this one. Obviously, when I first saw it, I was blown away by it, and it always was, a 5 out of 5 film. And recently I kind of, very much like Raging Bull and Mean Streets, I kind of brought it down a little bit. But I did re-watch it again before I made this list, and I think it is back to being a 5 out of 5 star film, and deservedly number 4 on the list, even though obviously a lot of people would have it higher. Just as far as a study of social isolation, which certainly I can relate to. It's just a great performance with De Niro, considering it was early on in Scorsese's career. The use of the camera is beautiful, the kind of lurid colours in it, the sense of we the audience kind of are put into Travis Bickle's shoes. We kind of see people through his eyes, which makes us feel uncomfortable. Obviously, if I do a Robert De Niro top 10, this would certainly be right up there. And also, if I do a top 10 Man in a Room films, then this would certainly be on the list as well. Great supporting work by Sybil Shepherd and Jodie Foster and Albert Brooks. Yeah, I mean, obviously most people will have seen this film, but if you haven't, do check it out. But it's certainly not a Saturday night popcorn film, and that's Taxi Driver, only at number 4, shockingly. So number 3, and again this might be a bit low for people, it's Goodfellas. This is a fantastic film, breakneck speed, and as Scorsese said at the time, kind of films were getting faster and faster, so he pretty much went, well, if you want a fast film, I'll show you a fast film. This is about 139 minutes, something like that, but it absolutely flies by. And the great thing about it is, you're kind of it's that ambiguity between liking guys who do terrible things, but then they kind of obviously change from, you know, the whole film is spent saying how, you know, honourable they are and how kind of important their fellow gang members are, but then at the end it's pretty much every man for himself. And then the kind of final shots and the final kind of question raised by the film is pretty challenging, and some people might be okay with it and other people won't be. But again, De Niro, obviously Joe Pesci is famous for the famous scene, and he gives I would say a fairly typical Joe Pesci performance. Ray Liotta is the lead character, is very good, but again De Niro just has that. The reason De Niro's so good is because he doesn't have to wave his arms about and roll his eyeballs and shout and bawl. He's very kind of, he does a lot of stuff with his eyes, which is obviously what great actors do. There's the famous scene after robbery, and he's in the bar and he's pretty much sizing up everybody as he tells everybody not to spend money, and then everybody starts spending money. And again, it's just all with De Niro's eyes, which is very similar to his eyes in Taxi Driver and the rear view mirror of the cab. So for me, De Niro steals the show despite Joe Pesci kind of being a Tasmanian devil on one side and Ray Liotta doing a lot of cocaine on the other side. It's a great film. This was made in 1990, so it's going back a little bit, but it still stands up, and it's one of the best gangster films ever made. So number 2 is The King of Comedy. This is a great film, obviously, because it's at number 2. And it's sadly, again, like a lot of great films, still relevant today. It's about celebrity, and it's probably one of the arguably best film ever made about celebrity. De Niro again with a fantastic performance as a super fan, Rupert Pupkin. Jerry Lee Lewis in arguably the best performance of his life. Probably playing something closer to Jerry Lee Lewis as a TV show host who Robert De Niro idolises and wants to get on his show and will do anything to get on his show. Yeah, Jerry Lee Lewis just lays himself bare. And it's just a great film. I mean, Sandra Bernhard is fantastic as De Niro's slightly unhinged sidekick, and it's just perfect. It's just absolutely perfect. Again, it might be one of the one of the Scorsese films that hasn't really been seen by a lot of people. It's maybe deemed to be one of his smaller films, but it is absolutely fantastic. So that leaves number 1, which again is probably a controversial pick, but again, this is just my personal list, and it's The Age of Innocence. Bizarrely enough, this is on the Criterion Blu-ray release, which is absolutely lovely. It's a beautiful print of an absolutely beautiful film. It's Scorsese's 1993 costume drama. So people might be going, what? This is the film he made after Cape Fear, believe it or not, 1993. So bizarrely it's now 25 years old, which is hard to believe. Daniel Day-Lewis, Michelle Pfeiffer and Winona Ryder, based on Edith Wharton book. And it's absolutely beautiful. it's absolutely perfect. The script is wonderful, and it's pretty much about a man who can't get what he wants, can't be with the person he wants to be with because of society's laws, by the social hierarchy at the time. You have to follow the rules, and it's so resonant. Michelle Pfeiffer's never been better. Apparently there's fantastic extras on this, and so apparently she was quite intimidated working with Daniel Day-Lewis and Scorsese. She wasn't sure she'd be able to step up to the plate, but she's absolutely luminous in it. Again, I'm not going to have any spoilers, because again, it might not be a film that Scorsese fans have watched very often or have seen at all, because again, it's a costume drama. But it's lush. His use of colour, he has colour fade outs a la Powell and Pressburger. Again, before Kundun, this would probably be his most expressionistic film. The production design is amazing. Everything about it is just absolutely gorgeous. And the message of the film is quite powerful, or very powerful, and it is just one of those films that I absolutely love. And again, with this Criterion release, more and more people should see it and appreciate it. So that is my top 10 Scorsese films. Probably not the same top 10 as anybody on the whole of the internet and the world, I would say. But that's what personal opinion's all about. So leave a like if you liked this video, or please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos. Please do leave comments, because I'm sure this video will force people to leave some comments, just because of the top 10 that I picked, the films that I left out. So please get in touch. I would be interested to hear what you think about Scorsese, and certainly his later films. So thank you very much for watching, and this is the Solitary Ronin saying goodbye.